School of Music, where music education is prominent. In today's lesson, we're going to go over R&B piano style, similar to the style of LMA. This lesson will be very valuable to the producer community, as we're going to learn how to create tonal centers by piano and creating complex harmonic chord progression. Okay, we'll have that, and just building a whole beat or composition around the piano. And then it's in a harmonic minor, so we'll learn, how to move around the harmonic minor a little bit, and just how to build an R&B beat. It's a very, very beautiful track. So we do this for the SPAnonMusicSchool of Music, which is a nonprofit educational organization. It's an online school. We've been servicing people inside and outside of the U.S. for over 2 years. We've had a lot of success with it. We will continue to have success and continue to bless fellow producers and students that want to learn music as they come into our school. So you can learn, it's a full university level training. Okay, so you'll have, music fundamentals and reading and writing music and piano, and we go over classical and jazz and stuff like that. And also piano, how you can use it in here, which we'll learn today in your production. Obviously, it's going to make you a very good producer. And composition and instrumentation and music theory, obviously, and lots of mixing and pretty much everything, right? We don't leave any loopholes. So anyway, you can email in the description, and you can get a free consultation, and we can learn more about your musical goals and endeavors as it pertains to having a career in music, and we will definitely be there to help you. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So you said it's a piano beat, so obviously we're going to start off with the piano, and the first thing we want to do is build a tonal center. And we want to build a tonal center because it's going to let us know what key we are in, and it's going to give us our options, let us know, obviously the key is the scale, and what our options would be in terms of bass line, and then also how to add in melodies, underlying melodies, supporting melodies, commentary, call and response, whatever you decide to do. If you do a legato melody, it doesn't matter the compositional technique that you use to employ the melody, but this tonal center being created will dictate what key you're in, and it'll let you know what notes you're able to use for that. So that's why creating a tonal center is first and foremost the most important thing to do. So we're up 84 beats per minute, and I chose the key of E flat minor, okay, or D sharp minor, but to simplify it, we'll say E flat minor, okay, which is the relative minor to G flat major, okay. That's important to know. And this is also based on the harmonic minor, okay, which the harmonic minor is a little bit different. So let's go over the scale really quick. Okay, so you have E flat, okay, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat, okay, D, and then E flat again. That is the scale that makes up of the E flat harmonic minor. And I know you're probably wondering, well, why is the C sharp highlighted when you mentioned the D? Well, that's called borrowing from another scale, and we're going to get into that, and that's what kind of makes it complex in itself. But let's listen to it first, right, so we know what's going on, and then we'll go ahead and tackle it from there. All right, so there's a lot to learn here. You can see voice leading, you see left hand arpeggiated accompaniment within the chord progression, and then of course you have right hand chords that are full chords, right, with 4 voices, okay, and then you also have, like I said, a bass, arpeggiated bass. So there's a lot to learn there, and then of course the rhythmic elements of this chord progression. So that's what I want to tackle first, because the rhythm is everything as well with the progression, because you can have a nice chord progression, but if the rhythm to it is no good, then it could sound boring or whatnot. So so this chord progression, I'll tell you how this type of rhythm is thought of to be built by a composer and how this comes about. So basically what's really taking place is you have a chord, okay, on every 2 beats, okay, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? So 4 beats in a measure. So you chord here, you get a chord here on beat 3, chord here on beat 3, chord here, of course, on all of the ones of the new measures. And what you're doing to create the rhythm so it doesn't sound boring like on every downbeat, you're going to take the second chord that is always on the beat 3s of the existing measure, and you're going to do what we call an anticipation. So we're going to anticipate beat 3, okay? And you do that by you can take the chord and move it back an 8th note, right? And when you do that, you're now, making it early, therefore, because it knows ahead of time what the chord progression will be or what the next chord is, and you're anticipating the beat. That's what's being anticipated. And this gives you a nice rhythm, somewhat syncopated rhythm, right? Okay, so that's nice, and that is what's used here. So you got it here, here, and all the way throughout. So that's the main rhythm. Now the chord progression itself, let's analyze it and find out, what do we have here? So this is B flat, okay? So this is an open 7th, okay? So right away we have a B flat minor chord, right? Minor 7 chord, okay? Now this is very complex, so hang in there, and I'll make sure that I put that in the title so that we don't interest anyone who does not, want to go over something of this nature. So we don't want to lose anybody, right? So there's a lot of things going on here. So here's the bass, right? So you have the bass and the piano, and then here's the chord. So the style that's being played here is that the right hand will play the chord and the left hand will actually play the bass. They're not playing the chords together, okay? And then as you see added, there'll be some arpeggiation within the left hand playing in the bass, which would furthermore spice it up a little bit, okay? So with the right hand playing the chord, okay, that means we're going to separate our hands, okay? So we're not going to immediately think about what we're doing in the bass. We're going to go ahead and just focus on the chord itself, because that is the chord progression, and it'll dictate then what you can do in the bass. So let's focus here. At the top, there's a B flat minor 7 chord, okay? And it is in 3rd inversion, okay? Because the minor 7th of the chord is in the bass of just the chord, right? Don't worry about the bottom line, okay? So that means that if we were to move the minor 2nd back up an octave, then we'd be back in root position, okay? And so with the minor 7, okay, with the F on the top, so we have a B flat minor 7, and now let's go to the bass. The bass is going to go ahead and play the root note, and then it's going to arpeggiate some of the B flat minor chord, the first 3 notes. So it's going to arpeggiate the 1st, the minor 3rd, and the 5th. And I see here the reason that has been done, as you can see, is voice leading here. Okay, so there's voice leading that the F is going to go into the F sharp of the next chord. Okay, so what else to note here? Well, we're in E flat harmonic minor, okay, but we're going to borrow this chord in the beginning, okay, from E flat natural minor. If you're in the key of E flat natural minor, okay, so let's go over the scales, right? So you got E flat, F, F sharp, excuse me, we're gonna do in the flats. So E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat, okay, and then D, and then here's your tonic E flat, okay. So now in the natural, that's harmonic minor. In the natural minor, you'll have E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat, okay, and then you'll have D flat, okay, and then E flat again. So as you can see now, we are borrowing in the beginning of the chord progression, we're going to borrow the 5 chord, okay, from the natural minor, okay. In the natural minor, the 5 chord is a minor 7. So that's what's happening here. So we were able to borrow that chord, okay, and then going into the next chord, we're going to walk down, okay, to the 4 chord, okay. So 5 minor 7, right? 5 chord is minor 7 because we're borrowing the chord from the natural minor of our tonic. And then we're going to go down to 4 chord, okay. Both keys have a minor 7 that can be played that lies at the 4. Okay, so this is a flat minor 7 chord. Now, really quick, let's go over the technique of this voicing, of the first voicing, which is called, here it's an open 7, okay, and you'll learn about the open chord. I think just in the last tutorial we had an open voicing. So this is something I like to do. and it has been around for quite some time in music, classical music, used a lot in jazz, open chord voicings. Thelonious Monk, of course, the master of the open chord voicing. So now it's got an open seventh, and then the rest of the chord is filled in. Okay, so this gives space here, and it gives a nice open sound. That's what that's for. Now in the A flat minor chord, okay, looks like, so when you're playing piano and you're doing a chord progression, you're basically kind of imitating voices, and these are called voices. These are called chord voicings, how you voice the chord. So theoretically, you know, this note here and here and here have their voices. They have their own voice. And so realistically, in a very high compositional technique, you will want to move all of your voices. Not in every case, but you want the voices to be kept track of, basically. All right, so if we have 4 notes here, and you can see where the 4 notes basically move to. Okay, so they moved down. All right, so 1, 2, 3, and then 4. All right, and then we've either added a voice here so that we have another note here, or from the jump, the initial bass note here was 2 voices, and one remained down on B flat and walked down to A flat, and the other voice was what was arpeggiating, okay, to run into the chord. So that's how that can be explained as well. So in this chord voicing, this is actually a flat minor 9. So you have your root, A flat, and you have E flat, your 5th. Okay, here's the minor 7th, G flat, and then here's the 9, B flat, crushed up against the 3rd. Okay, so you see it crushed there. It's called a crush note. They have the minor seconds crushed together, and then we have the 5th at the top again. So that's the chord voicing there, and I talked about this. This was just arpeggiating that chord. The next chord, so notice that we borrowed, teach you about borrowing a chord and how you make this chord progression work. What you do is you borrow the chord, okay, from a key, from another key that has common chords from your natural key that you are desired to be in, right? So we want to be in E flat minor, or this progression to be there. So when we borrowed the chord from another scale, which was the natural minor, in turn, they have a lot of common chords. One of the common chords is G sharp minor, right? So G sharp minor is a common chord, which is, you know, very, very important to note that, okay? So, or excuse me, in this case, we're saying A flat minor. So A flat minor, we'll stick with the flats. I know it says sharps here, but trust me, it gets even more complex as you would then have a C double sharp, and you also have an E sharp, and it's just the way Fruity Loops did not design this in a very intelligent way as far as musicianship. So now, going into the next chord, right, since we borrowed this chord, right, from the 5th of the natural minor, and then here we are on the A flat minor 7 chord. This chord you can also find in the harmonic minor. So this is going to help us transition to get back into the harmonic minor without it sounding weird, like, whoa, you're in 2 different keys here, it didn't match up. It's actually going to sound like it all goes together, right? So you wouldn't even know. Okay, and that's because this chord is a common chord to the key we wish to return to, so it's going to go ahead and flow into that, you know, very well. So then we'll go to this to the 2 chord. Okay, so we'll go to the 2 chord, which is the F minor 7 flat 5. Okay, so what happens here? The 4 voices, what have happened to our 4 voices? They turn into 3. Well, basically what's going to take place is these 2 notes here are going to come into the same voice, basically. So that explains how one of our voices disappeared. It didn't. They're going to be doing a unison here. Okay, so there's a unison going on. Just like I said, there could be a unison going on here. And when they break apart from the unison, one note can go back to A flat, and the other one can go ahead and do the arpeggio and come back to D sharp, basically. And that's how we get this movement. So going to the F minor 7 flat 5. So this is a 2 chord, all right, and we're setting up the 2, 5, 1 chord progression, basically. So Now what's taking place is that we have the 5 chord. So this is simple voicing. This one is just the bass note here, and then here we're filling in the rest of the chord. So this is considered a root position chord, okay? Overall, from just based on the fact that if you look, it's right. All the proper notes are in succession of thirds. So F, okay, A flat, and then B, and then E flat. So there's your chord there. But in the right hand, though, in the chord alone, you only had to play an A flat minor triad. Okay, so that's what you're playing in the right hand. So let's keep up here. So again, in the very beginning, you are playing a third inversion B flat minor 7 chord. The next chord, those 4 voices are then going to play a B major 7 chord, right? Here's B, the root. Here's the major 7. Here's the third, okay? And then here's F sharp, all right, which is the 5th, okay? So that's what that is. But when you put the A flat in the bass, it then turns into an A flat minor 7, right? So that, and I'm just showing you the techniques on how you create these complex sounds and how you would know how to build chords in certain chord voicings. Now, going back here, so again, this chord voicing. So always too, when you're thinking of chords, think of chords as there's chords inside of the chord itself, right? So while this is an F minor 7 flat 5, okay, or an F half diminished chord, shares a similar name basically, right? So over here is just a flat minor triad, right? So it's important to know that. So here we do another roll, which we're going to take the chord, and it's a complete arpeggiation of the chord, right? Just rolling up the chord, right? The chord voicing. So here is the A flat, the B, and the E flat, okay? And finally, we're doing a 2-5 chord progression, right? So it's based on a 2-5-1 chord progression. And so here's the 5 chord, okay? All 5 chords in any key, okay? Any real key, right? So like harmonic minor is the real minor key, right? Not natural minor, right? People write songs and more pieces have been written in the harmonic minor than the natural. Natural is kind of more like a commercialized thing, right? In modern music. So here in the harmonic minor, all minor and major scales, the 5 chords going to be, or should we say in all major and minor keys, the 5 chord will be dominant, right? Okay, so in harmonic minor, the 5 chord is dominant. So we're going to play the 5 chord, and our chord voicing here, if you notice, is the exact same as the minor 7, the 5 minor 7. Here we're on a 5-7 flat 5, 5-7 meaning that it's a dominant 7 chord with a flat 5. And then here we're on a 5 minor 7. So we're calling it the 5 because we're in the key of E flat. Okay, so if we're playing any type of B flat chord, the B flat is a 5th to the tonic. Okay, so here we have this B flat dominant chord, and we're voicing it the same with an open 7th. Okay, and then we're going to play flat 9. Okay, and then we're going to play 3rd. And then we will play the 5th of the chord. All right, so it's a different type of voicing. But if you look here, same thing. This is just a fully diminished chord, right? So it turns into a fully diminished chord, which is very sensational. So where do the 3 voices go? Or the 4 voices, rather. So E flat's going to go up to F, okay? One of the B's will go to D. The other one will remain the same. And then A flat will remain the same as well. So what else do we have here that we're looking at? So that completes the progression. This is actually just going to repeat. And once again, this one is not an arpeggio. This time it's scalar motion. So we'll do a scalar line. And this is considered a walk when you walk up a scale and you don't skip any notes. So we're just going to walk up the 3rd, okay, to the 4th. All right. And the 4th, when we play this 4th, this is now going to give the hint of some type of suspension, or, you know, just kind of playing around with it, but it's definitely still dominant. But it just walks over as a passing note of the extension, which is pretty cool. And this chord progression is going to repeat, and then here. So now that we know the full chord progression, what really has taken place is it's a 4-2-5-1 chord progression. And the 1 chord, as you can see, has been substituted for the 5 minor 7. See, so I substituted the 1 chord for a 5 minor 7, and now you see why this is very complex, aside from the fact that it just is in itself. But adding to the complexity is the fact that we are in a key, okay, we are in a key which means this whole composition is dictated based on the knowledge and theory of E flat minor, yet we never play E flat minor chord. And that's beautiful, right? That's amazing. So, but that's why, you know, this is a high level, you know, theory to pull this off, to ignore or omit that chord in this type of substitution. So dropping the gems, right? So this is, like I said, just going to repeat. There could be some variations. Let's see. Very well so. So the second time you can see the variation, or a note omitted rather. Okay, so the rhythm changes a little bit there. And then when you get to the F minor 7 flat 5, it looks like it's the same here. Okay, and then the B flat chord. This one's going to walk all the way up, right? So this time no E flat. Okay, so it's going to actually arpeggiate the first 3 notes of the chord, and then it's going to go up to the sharp 5. Okay, which is nice because that's going to walk to A flat basically. So now that you know everything that's going on with the chord progression, okay, so you have a 5 minor 7, okay, 4 2 5, 5 minor 7, 4 2 5, and the harmonic minor D flat. And that was the most, you know, the most complex part. But now that we've gotten over that, you know, you have to know that that's what's going on. That's how this was built, and we can move on from there. So again, this is, you know, that's why a lot of people don't make R&B music, right? Or people do sampling and things like that when they do, because they don't want, not a lot of people have the knowledge to put together these chord progressions. Okay, so the hard part is done. Okay, it's all done. We've gotten through that, and that is the part that sets the tonal center. We know what key we are in. We are in E flat harmonic minor. We know what the chord progression is. We know what our notes that we can use are. I mean, we've got it going on. So we are prepared to add a bass line, okay, and we're prepared to add rhythms too, because that's why I said it's important how your tonal center sets the rhythm, because the rhythm that follows that, the drums and the percussion, which are very important as they're like the driving point in modern music, is also going to be somewhat built around your initial rhythm. So your initial rhythm is very important and could dictate how you're able to do your drums. So now that we have that, what you want to do now is, once you basically get your tonal center down and your rhythm established, you want to try it out and make sure that it's going to work. So the next thing you want to do is add your downbeat snare clap. That's very important. So here I used a snap, okay, and I think there's a clap as well, or I must have put them on the same. Oh yeah, there's a clap here, but I believe it started with a snap. So let's put a snap in here just to see if this works, right? Okay, so the snap is good, right? So we know that, okay, we've created a nice rhythm and it stands, because, you know, once the clap or snap, whatever you're going to put, snare comes in, you can kind of feel if it's going to stand, and you can see if the rhythm is set. So we got that down, and we can now fill in the drums. We're okay with it. Okay, so we want to put in a kick. And notice how the kick pattern, again, hit along with the piano. So again, your initial rhythm set forth in your accompaniment, or whatever you use to create your tonal center, can and will dictate, or will basically lend itself to the complement of the drums. So it's important. So anyway, we got what we like. The kick comes in, it sounds decent. So at that point, percussion is easy, people. So you just go ahead and fill it in, right? Just fill in your percussion, whatever you want to do. So we got hi-hats. So we'll just throw that in there, okay? And this is also why they call it a piano beat, because notice that with the piano, as you see, as we put all the drums in and the percussion, It's ready now. You can hear it, right? So the rest is decoration and building around that tonal center created. And I'm going to show you how to do that and how I did that in this particular beat. So we got our drums in, you know, percussion to set the rhythm forth and all of that. And now we need to put the backbone of the beat in. The backbone of any music composition, a beat, a classical symphony or whatever, it's going to be based on the bass. The bass is always the backbone of something. So we're now going to throw in the bass and things are going to get a little different now. So, okay, so here's a bass line. And this one will rock your world. Let's take a let's just observe right away, because we only listened to the piano first before, because it needed to be heard. So then when it was explained, because it's very complex, you know, people wouldn't be lost. They kind of understand what's going on. But we now know what the chord progression and tonal center is. So what do you see here? Right away you see an F, right? So you know that I have basically inverted some chords via the bass line as well. So it used to be in third inversion. Now we are finalized. So the bass note is the lowest frequency, right? Bass is the lowest frequency, okay, that is going to be used. And the lowest frequency that matters because it actually produces a pitch. Like here, it's producing the pitch of F. And therefore, it's going to dictate the rest of the piece. And it's now going to control the tonal center. You're in the tonal center, right? But it's now going to control basically that real chord progression. So while we were in a third inversion minor 7 chord, which would have the A flat and the bass, now that the bass is spoken, the bass is saying, hey, we're going to use F. What that immediately changes the first chord into, it's the same chord, but it now changes it into second inversion, because now the F is in the bass. Okay, so that takes place, and you can see the octave run here, and we're going to do a complete walk. As you see, the bass line is based on a walk. Okay, so now we know the second chord is an A flat minor 9. However, it still is that, but now it is an A. It's not quite. It's in third inversion now, right? So that's what's important to know, because the G flat is in the bass. So I've taken these chords and I've moved them around. Now one used to be third inversion, and the other one used to be root position. And now we changed the first one to second inversion, and now the second one is third inversion. Going to the next chord. The next chord was what? The next chord was F minor 7 flat 5, or F half diminished. However, it's the same thing. And so they share the same name. They share the same chord, but they have different names. So here we have the A flat in the bass. So this is simply, okay, you got a F minor 7 flat 5, okay, and you can say it's in second inversion, or first inversion with the A flat in the bass. Or you can simply now define it as a 4 minor 6. Okay, now we know you can call it that, right? Because that's what it could be. It's A flat, and you got the minor third, which is B, and then you'll have E flat, which is the 5th, and then you'll have F, which is the 6th. So by the way, a minor 7 flat 5 chord, if you invert it, okay, it'll become a minor 6 chord from the third of the chord, right? So F minor 7 flat 5, F, A flat, B, E flat, okay, from the third of the chord is what? A flat, and then if you invert it, it's just a minor 6. However, the chord is functioning as a 2 chord, so that's what it is. This chord is functioning, it's going to lead to the 5. So I'm just telling you that it's the same chord, and you can say that, but then you're not really deep on the theory like that, because it's not the functionality of a chord is really what you want to list it as. So it's functioning as a 2 chord. So we will call this the minor 7 flat 5, okay, in first inversion. All right. So you see how things are changing, okay. And notice here we have bent notes here in the bass, okay, or grace notes, if you will. And then finally, the 5 will get its root note, okay. So in this chord progression, the 5 is the only chord that, the natural 5, by the way, so in the harmonic minor, the dominant chord is the only one that gets its root as the bass note. And because this created a beautiful walk, all right. And then you have another octave jump here. And this just is repeating, okay, and same thing. And later in the end, it'll just hit the third of the chord, and then it'll do a walk, okay, back to F, but the walk will be inverted. So instead of D, E flat right here, it inverts down to the E flat below an octave. All right, so that's what our bass line is doing. Now that you know what it's doing, let's take a listen. So again, notice how the initial piano rhythm set forth is with the bass line adhered to with little embellishments, right? Side, right? These are little embellishments, right? So you got, right? Just a little embellishment to, what is an embellishment, right? To make something seem like it's more than what it is. This is still the same walking bass line, but we're making embellishments. Right? Boom, right? These are all embellishments. But it's all based on this walking bass line, okay? So as you can see, when you know music theory and you know knowledge and you know how to play the piano, and that's important to note because this was all played in, as you can see. None of this is, I don't know if you'll be able to get the feel. You know, it won't be the same. It'll sound computerized and robotic, and your velocities won't be right. Notice all the velocities, and you may not even think to create a pattern. That's another thing too. While people say, yes, you can click in your notes, but your note clicking in, the patterns that you click in are not really realistic. Now, if the human hands do it, then the patterns you put in will be more realistic. Another thing is too, no matter how many people try to copy this chord progression, it'll never sound like me because it was based on my finger pressure, as you can see here. So, you know, if you're doing something that everybody else is doing, you guys are all clicking in your notes, anybody can sound like you. But if you start to take the weight of your own hand, okay, and create your melodies and velocities are produced by the weight of your own hand, no one can copy that because no one, it has your hand and no one is playing piano like you do, right? And that's how you get your own sound. That's why people like a Zaytoven or a Scott Storch, and you know, they have a certain type of special sound, or people like myself as well. We have a special sound because you cannot duplicate it because it's based on our set of hands. So anyway, here now, the beat, well done. All we have to do is continue to decorate it, okay? So we have this piano chord progression, and piano accompaniment really sounds good when what, right? How many times do you really hear a rapper rapping over pure piano, right? That's very seldom seen, right? However, we always see people singing over the piano. With that being said, while it's not mandatory or not the end-all be-all, it would obviously be a nice thing to add a singing melody on top of piano, right? Especially if you're gonna have another voice in there, but you want it under, and that's why we mix and stuff, so we can mix it under so it's not gonna get in the way of another singing voice. So that's what we, you know, wanted to add here. But let's go ahead and focus on underlying texture. So I did some underlying texture on the bass, and so it's still the same walk, but we're talking texture now, right? So a composer does certain things for the sake of texture. You might see Beethoven might add, you know, maybe some violas or cellos to a certain part of his symphony, and their main role was not to be heard or to produce the main sounds of the chords or to get the solo or the melody. Their main role may be to provide underlying texture, you know, whether it be bass, or it depends on where he wants the texture and the frequency range. Okay, so that's important to understand texture as a composer. Again, we learn all of this thoroughly in and out at the SPAnonMusicSchool School of Music. It is #1 in music education for producers. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's not even close. So again, this is just 2D of the bass, but it's about texture. Now take a listen. So notice how can you say you significantly heard it, like it was obvious? No, that's not exactly my point. Like I said, Beethoven maybe wrote a certain part for certain people. That wasn't the job. That's why it's called the underlying bass texture. It wasn't for that. It was to add texture to this bass. And indeed, it did just that, right? But of course, on its own, right? Okay, so now we got that done. And we're pretty much sitting here. So I want this, we don't want to take up too much space, right, for the voice. And, you know, Ella Mai, when she was singing over this piano style beat, you know, wasn't too much in her way, right? It was a piano beat. So at that point, we want to do something ambient and in the background to not take over and get in the way. So I didn't add, for scientific purposes and psychological purposes, I did not add things all over the place, right? Because this isn't a rap beat, you know, this is a R&B beat, and someone's going to be singing and their voice needs to be the highlight. So here you can do things like this, little ambient sounds and stuff in the background that are very much sudden and momentarily. See how that complemented, and instrumentation is important too. So every texture of every sound, you could ruin a beat, right? What if I threw in something uglier? This beat would be ruined, right? So instrumentation is vital. Do you know how to select instruments? Do you know the history of instruments? Do you know why this instrument was created? Do you know the traditional role of that instrument? I mean, if you did know that information, wouldn't that help you moving forward, even if you wanted to change it and give it another role? But knowing something's roots, okay, is very and knowing something's roots and origins is very important if you're going to change something, right? I would, you know, personally know that because I made so much money off of listening to something and just saying, okay, I see the origins of what's going on here, but I'm going to change it and do this. Okay, so let's go into, at this point, we're now ready to put in the legato melody. It just needs one little melody, right? Okay, and so here, this is what you call a singing legato melody, right? So this instrument, okay, that is here has been chosen, and its primary role is to sing. And we want it to sing in a legato manner, meaning that all the notes will be connected, okay? And we want the quality of it to be singing like, so the melody to sound like it's singing, like someone's wailing out. And so this brings a lot of emotion and expression to the beat. Now, the compositional technique used here within, okay, as far as the melodicism of this melody, is based on a long, okay, so when you get to a certain point, color basically, let's just start there. So it's about color, okay, it's about color, and the skill of color is, will come about as you continue to deal with music and play different chord progressions and stuff like that, and understand a deeper, have a deeper understanding of music theory, within your composition. That's going to allow you to understand. But we teach all of this, color, everything I'm going over, we go over in full detail every day, every week, all week long, okay? You also get 24/7 mentorship and counseling from me, right? So there's a lot there that can help you, that will help you make sure you get to that point. With the singing melody, there's going to be one note, okay, in a chord progression that you can find here and there that have a lot of color in it. So this note here provided a lot of color. So we're going to choose this note to ring out and sustain it for a long time. So it'll be elongated right here, okay? And think about it. This is pretty much going to cover the whole measure. So I'm going to teach you guys something very valuable here. So this one note, okay, remember how I showed you the chords and how I said the chords are basically one on beat 1, another on 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. Well, this technique is basically, this one note is basically ringing through the whole thing. That's what it is. All this is embellishments, and we'll get to that. But this is just one note, a one note melody, okay, with a lot of decorative embellishments, okay? And that's it, or high points, if you will, okay, of musical expression. But the main note is here. So let's go over the theory of that. So this note in the beginning, what we're playing, so it's a root note of the chord, but this time it really sounds really good because remember we have an F in the bass. So it doesn't seem like we're over, beating a dead horse with the root of the chord. As you see, the notes are bent or graced, however you want to say it. And what's going on here, this is just an embellishment. This is just a roll, okay? A quick turnaround. So and this is not the real note either, B. This is really just a jump, okay, to C sharp, or excuse me, D flat, and a jump back down. So it's a turnaround, so we could turn right back into the note. All of this is embellishment, ornamentation here, this is the grace note bent into it, and this is a chromatic fall into your note, okay? Which you're basically going to play whatever note, and you're going to use chromatics to fall into the note. So these notes are unimportant. They're all, you know, decorative, right? And so with that being said, as you see, it's just the B flat. Okay, so B flat is the root of the first chord, and then the second chord becomes the 9. So we're getting color. However, the first chord is not in root position, so that's why it really still creates color in the beginning there. And then here, for the 2 chord, now our 2 chord just became very complex because it becomes a minor 11 flat 5. You see, so because that the B flat, okay, is the 11th of the chord, all right, and then the last chord, it's root again, all right, so B flat, okay, but notice when it hits that, that's why we kind of break away from it, if you noticed, right, because the root actually is in the bass, and maybe we don't want to overemphasize. So this repeats, okay, the second time it's not bent, right, because of the falling line. You don't want to fall and notes around. That may not sound too good. Excuse me. So now here is A flat. All right. So which is, once again, these are more embellishments to kind of pick up, just to fall right back into the B flat. And then these are just rising high points to add expression. Okay. So let's listen to it now that you know everything that's going on. And here is just rising points. So you're going up here, okay, and then up higher and then back down, okay? So we're kind of creating somewhat a little melody. Very, very beautiful. So, and by using the E flat a couple times here at the end, it's really, really nice. And once again, you're seeing the E flat being used, which is the 4th of the dominant chord. So it's very, very nice. And that's pretty much it. That's a wrap. Here we have little flute that's been added in as a commentary. Okay, it's just commenting on the beat. Look at the space in between the melody here. Again, we're leaving space for our singer, LMA, or whoever it's going to, you know, sing on the beat, right? And so this is a commentary. So an entire conversation being on, but the flute is only an entire conversation, excuse me, is going on, and the flute is only allowed to comment on it. All right, so it doesn't overstep its boundaries. Okay, so you see the imitation. So this is nothing, but it becomes textural at first, right? And just a little commentary, right? And then it's going to be imitated up an octave. That's it. And there's your beat. So those are all the elements of the beat. So as you can see, the most complex part about it was the piano, right? And once the piano got going and you understood, you know, harmonic minor and what's going on and how we borrowed the chord from the natural minor and all that stuff, everything kind of got easy from there. Like I said it would, creating a tonal center makes your life easy. It pretty much finishes the entire beat from the very beginning. And your knowledge of knowing what you're doing, what key I'm in, as you see how I was able to build and get complex music and beautiful music based on music theory, based on the knowledge, knowing what I'm doing. I know what key I'm in, I know the possibilities, I know the chords, I know the bass notes, I know compositional techniques and all that type of stuff. And again, you can learn all of that at the SPAnonMusicSchool School of Music. We don't miss a beat. We'll take care of you. Now, let's listen to the beat and get out of here. And we'll have our final thoughts. But before we do that, right, so there you have it. Perfection. All right, and so that's how you guys saw the track built from scratch, and the thought process and that goes behind the composition and the knowledge and theory behind it, the science behind it, psychology behind it, and this is what you have. Now, mind you, it took me less to compose the music than it did to do this tutorial, to explain it. You get what I'm saying? So this is, when you have the knowledge, I mean, this is something you can put together in 45 minutes, mixed and everything, you know? So yeah, hopefully you guys learned a lot. Like I said, it's definitely very complex, but this is what it takes, you know, to make R&B music. This is why a lot of people don't make R&B music. This is why a lot of people don't make soul music. And when they do, they get other pianists to play it, or other people to send them loose, or they use samples and things like that. Or it's simple progressions, right, that definitely don't hit dominant chords and move into, you know, borrowing from different scales and so on and so forth. So again, I advise everyone, you know, highly advise and encourage and recommend that you guys contact me. The email in the description, SPAnonMusicSchool of Music, and get your free consultation, and we'll definitely help you out. All right, peace and blessings to everybody. I hope you're well, and, you know, the world is definitely in my prayers, man. Maestro SP out.